I had spent 3 years learning how to stitch wolves back together without letting any of them know my name. At the Human University, everyone thought I was just the girl with the impossible schedule. Human medicine in the morning, veterinary anatomy in the afternoon, zoology labs whenever I could fit them in. My classmates joked that I was trying to become 3 doctors at once. They were not entirely wrong. Human medicine was my cover. Veterinary medicine taught me bones and muscle without asking why I cared so much about bodies that healed too fast. Zoology gave me language for the things humans called impossible. None of it was easy, but hiding had never been easy either. I was a lone wolf because I had chosen to live. Simon had made that choice necessary. He was the alpha son from my old pack, the kind of man who smiled in public and made people lower their eyes without realizing they had done it. He had never called what he wanted from me love. Simon was too honest for that. To him, I was a thing that had wandered out of reach. And the longer I stayed gone, the more certain I became that he would enjoy dragging me back. Alpha Solomon, his father, was the only reason I had made it out. He sent me away quietly in the first semester of tuition and told me not to come home until I could protect myself with more than a good heart. So I became useful, quiet, careful. My wolf hated every part of it. Anika had been pacing under my skin for weeks by the time I finally took her out. I drove 2 hours from campus, parked where the tree lines swallowed the road, and checked the wind before I opened the door. I always check the wind. Old habits kept lone wolves alive. The forest was cold enough that the first breath hurt. I changed quickly, tucked my clothes high into the fork of an oak, and let Anika take the body before fear could talk me out of it. For a while, there was only the clean rhythm of paws on wet earth. No lecture halls, no fluorescent lights, no pretending human coffee was enough to keep a wolf awake. Anika ran low and fast, her reddish-brown coat brushing fern, still damp from the evening rain. Then she stopped so suddenly that the leaves slid under her claws. Blood, not old blood, not deer. The smell was hot, metallic, threaded with the bitter stink of wolf's bane oil and rusted iron. Somewhere ahead, something heavy shifted and went still again, as if it had learned that movement made the pain worse. We should go, I told her. Anika did not move. The wind turned and beneath the blood came another scent. Teakwood smoke after rain, warm skin, alpha mate, Anika said. And for one foolish second, every lesson I had taught myself went silent. I had imagined my mate once, back when I was young enough to believe the moon goddess was kind. I had not imagined finding him half hidden in enemy brush, one massive black leg caught between the teeth of a bear trap built for war. He was in wolf form, bigger than any wolf I had treated in a classroom simulation, midnight dark, except where blood had matted the fur around his hind leg. The trap had closed below the knee and crushed deep. If he shifted, the change would tear through the remaining tissue. If he stayed there, whoever said it would come back. His green eyes followed us through the brush. He knew we were there. He also knew he could not chase us. That should have made him less dangerous. It did not. I forced the shift back before I could think too hard about being exposed in front of a stranger. Mate or not, fear made my hands efficient. I kept them open, kept my voice steady, and did not step close until his nostrils flared over my scent. I'm not here to hurt you, I said. The trap is under the joint, and if you shift, you may lose the leg before anyone can help you. If you let me release it, you still have a chance. His ears angled toward me, not trust exactly. Calculation. Good. I understood calculation. I'm studying medicine, I added human and wolf. I know enough to get you out, maybe enough to keep you alive until your pack finds you. The black wolf lowered his head by a fraction. Permission. I worked by moonlight and touch. The trap was old but maintained. The springs still mean enough to take my fingers if I slipped. I found the release bar under packed mud, braced one knee against the frame, and borrowed every bit of strength Anika could give me. This will hurt, I warned. If you howl, anyone nearby will hear it. The wolf bared his teeth, not at me, but at the pain. He was preparing to swallow. On 3, I drove the release down. The jaws opened with a wet metallic snap. He jerked free and cut off the sound in his throat so sharply that I knew before he ever shifted that he was used to pain. Not in the romantic way songs made alpha sound brave. In the ugly way. War trained the body to obey even when it should break. When his bones began to change, I backed away and grabbed the bloody trap between us, like it could protect me. From a mate bond. It could not. The wolf became a man, kneeling in the leaves, one hand dug into the dirt, breath rough but controlled. He was older than me, broad-shouldered, scarred in the places warriors usually were, and too alert for someone with a shattered leg. "You saved me," he said. "I opened a trap," I answered. "You still need surgery." His mouth moved as if he might have smiled, but pain stopped it halfway. Name. I did not give it to him. That was my second mistake. Alphas noticed refusal the way doctors noticed infection. He looked at my face, then at the trees behind me, and understood too quickly that I was measuring distance. A howl rose from the east, his pack. I stepped back once he noticed that too. Wolves came through the trees in a rush of bodies and teeth. One shifted close enough to snarl. "Who are you?" The injured alpha's growl rolled out low and absolute, not loud, worse than loud. Every wolf in the clearing lowered his head. "She released the trap." I said, "Stand down." That was how I learned the stranger I had just saved was not only an alpha. The sensible thing would have been to let his warriors carry him home before anyone asked why a lone wolf knew how to open a war trap. I had almost reached the first line of brush when his voice stopped me. "Bring the doctor." For a moment, nobody moved. One of his men looked from him to me. "Our doctor is at the pack hospital." "Alpha, this doctor," he said. I turned slowly. "I am not your doctor." "No," he agreed. And his face had gone pale under the dirt. "But you're the only one here who has looked at my leg instead of my rank." That was not a command dressed as kindness. It was worse. It was a reason I could not easily refuse. Still, I tried. "I have school and I have a shattered leg in a war zone." His eyes held mine. "Help me get home alive. After that, we can argue about where you belong, where you belong." Anika pressed forward before I could answer. She'd always been softer than me. About packs, about belonging, about the terrible hope that somewhere wolves could be more than teeth and orders. I followed because he needed a doctor. That was the lie I told myself at his past hospital. The lights were too bright, and everything smelled of antiseptic, old blood, and exhaustion. Warriors lined the corridor with bandaged arms and half-healed bite marks. This was not a peaceful pack pretending at hardship. These wolves had been bleeding for a long time. Dr. Stevens arrived with the look of a man who had made too many fast decisions and survived most of them. He was not stupid. That mattered. A stupid doctor was easy to dismiss. A tired, experienced one was more dangerous because he trusted the habits that had kept people alive. Yesterday, he took one frontal plate, stared at the crushed mess of bone, and said, "If we spend all night trying to save this leg and infection sets in, we may lose the alpha. Amputation is the safer call." The room went quiet in a way only a pack hospital could go quiet. Nobody breathed too loudly. Nobody looked at Warren directly. I understood the logic. In a field tent after a battle with enemies still moving near the border, he might even have been right. But this was not a field tent. And the alignment on that single image told only half the story. Warren looked at me, not because I was his mate, not because the bond made me special, but because I had gone still at the X-ray. And good alphas paid attention. When the person beside them stopped breathing for a reason. "Say it," he ordered. Dr. Stevens frowned. "Alpha, she is a student. Then she can still see what you skipped." I met the old doctor's eyes. You need lateral views before you decide to remove a limb. The frontal image hides the posterior fragments. If the main shaft is intact enough to bridge, the leg is not lost. His jaw tightened. "And if you are wrong, then you amputate after you have enough information to know you had to." It was quiet again. Warren's voice cut through it, strained but steady. "Take the side views." That was the moment his pack began looking at me differently, not kindly, not yet, but no longer as if I were only a stray he had dragged in from the trees. Second set of images proved the leg was terrible, not hopeless. It would be hours of work, cleaning, waiting for his alpha healing to take each correction before moving to the next. It would hurt badly, even with a block. and Warren refused to be put fully under. While his boarders were unsettled, he did not make a speech about pain. He did not flirt over the surgical tray. He only gripped the edge of the table until the metal bent slightly and told me, "Do what you can." So I did. There is nothing glamorous about saving a limb. It is washing dirt from torn flesh. It is counting fragments. It is asking a man not to move while every instinct in his body tells him to pull away. Warren's breathing deepened. His heartbeat never truly settled. Even with the nerve block dulling the worst of it, every time I aligned another fragment of bone, the muscles in his thigh locked hard enough to make the operating table creak. "Easy," I murmured. His eyes never left the ceiling. "I am." It was the biggest lie either of us had told that night. Dr. Stevens stood opposite me in silence now, passing instruments before I asked for them. At some point, he'd stopped trying to take over. Instead, he watched. I irrigated the wound again. More saline. A nurse handed it over immediately. The muddy water ran red into the collection basin. "There's the posterior fragment." Stevens leaned closer. "I didn't see that." "You couldn't have," I answered. "Not from the first angle." Carefully, I coaxed the broken piece back into place. Warren hissed through clenched teeth. "Hold." He held. Not because it didn't hurt. Because he trusted me. The realization nearly made my hands shake. 3 hours later, sweat clung to my back beneath the surgical gown. "We're closing." Nobody celebrated. Not yet. The bone was aligned. The crushed tissue had been cleaned. The blood flow had returned to his paw. His healing, far stronger than a human's, would do the rest if infection stayed away. When I finally stepped back, Dr. Stevens stared at the scans. "I've been operating for 31 years. He looked at me. I would have taken his leg. I peeled off my gloves. "And tomorrow you won't." His laugh was quiet. "No, tomorrow I won't." Word spread through the hospital before sunrise. The alpha had kept his leg. The impossible student had argued with the chief surgeon. And been right. When I stepped into the hallway, conversation stopped. Warriors watched me. Nurses whispered. Someone actually bowed. I nearly walked into a wall trying to avoid looking at anyone. This was exactly what I never wanted. Attention got people remembered. Remembered people got found. I was halfway to the exit when someone blocked my path. A woman in her late 20s. Tall. Blonde. Immaculately dressed despite the hour. She wore authority like another piece of clothing. "So," her silver eyes swept over me. "You're the girl." "I don't know which girl." "The one my alpha brought home." I sighed internally. "Of course." She extended a hand. "Beta Helena." I shook it carefully. "Nice to meet you." "It isn't." Her smile never reached her eyes. "You've caused absolute chaos." "Sorry. Our alpha refuses anyone except you checking his leg." "That's not my decision." "I know." She studied me for another long moment. "You also smell like his mate." Every nearby conversation died instantly. "Wonderful." I kept my expression neutral. "You have an excellent nose." "I do." She folded her arms. "So why are you pretending you don't know?" "Because if I admitted it, I would become impossible to leave." "I know." The words surprised even me. "I also know mate bonds don't erase common sense." A flicker crossed Helena's face. "Interesting. I have a university. I have exams. I have a life. And whoever is hunting your alpha probably isn't finished." Silence. Then, "You noticed." I noticed the trap. I met her gaze. "That wasn't built by hunters." "No. It was designed to cripple an alpha." She nodded once. "So, you understand why I'd rather not advertise that I exist." For the first time. Helena smiled for real. "I like you." I'm not sure that's good news. It usually isn't. A commotion erupted down the corridor. A patrol had returned. 3 warriors burst through the hospital entrance carrying another wolf between them. The smell of blood hit before they did. "Move. Get Dr. Stevens. We're losing him." The wounded warrior's chest had been ripped open by something with claws far larger than any wolf's. Dr. Stevens hurried over. "What happened?" "The eastern border. Ambush." They knew exactly where we'd patrol. "They're getting bolder." As everyone rushed to save the injured wolf, I noticed something no one else seemed to. Embedded deep in the torn flesh was a sliver of black metal. My stomach tightened. I'd seen that alloy before. Years ago. Back in Simon's pack. Only one neighboring pack forged weapons from black obsidian steel mixed with wolfsbane. Only one. The pack Simon would inherit. Anika growled inside me. He's here. I stared at the metal. Much too close. And if Simon's warriors had crossed into Alpha Warren's territory, then saving my mate's leg had been the easy part. Keeping him alive was about to become much harder. The operating room became strangely quiet. Not because the wounded warrior had stopped breathing. Because I had. Dr. Stevens reached for the shard with forceps. Don't. My voice came out sharper than I intended. Every head turned. Stevens frowned. If it's contaminated. If you pull it out now, he'll bleed out. He froze. I stepped beside the table. The metal is acting like a plug. Clamp the artery above the wound first. Stevens hesitated for only a heartbeat before nodding. Clamp. The nurse obeyed. Now. The shard slid free. Blood surged. And stopped almost immediately under the clamp. The room exhaled as one. Stevens glanced at me. You knew. I guessed. It wasn't entirely true. I'd seen wounds like this before. Simon liked weapons that kept their victims alive just long enough to send a message. Outside the operating room, Helena was waiting. She held the black shard in a sealed evidence bag. You recognized it. I recognized the craftsmanship. You've seen it before. Yes. Where? I looked at the bag for a long moment. I can't answer that. You won't. No. She searched my face, measuring every tiny reaction. You aren't our enemy. It wasn't a question. No. But whoever made this, I swallowed, is connected to the pack I left. By sunset, Warren insisted on sitting up despite everyone's objections. Dr. Stevens looked ready to tie him to the bed. You've had reconstructive surgery. I noticed. You shouldn't be moving. I also noticed that. His dry tone earned him several irritated looks. When Helena entered with the evidence bag, Warren's expression hardened. What is it? She placed the shard on the bedside table. Our latest problem. He picked it up carefully. His green eyes narrowed. I've seen this metal. You have. Years ago. When? The border wars. He looked toward the window. Solomon. My heart skipped. Alpha Solomon? Warren looked back at me. You know him? I had already spoken too much. There was no taking it back. He helped me once. He was a good alpha. Warren's voice carried genuine respect. He stopped 3 packs from tearing each other apart. He also warned us that one neighboring pack was becoming ambitious. I knew which one. I didn't need him to say the name. Simon. That evening, I finally checked my phone. 37 missed calls. 21 voicemails. 43 unread texts. Every one of them from unknown numbers. My blood ran cold. I hadn't given anyone here my number. The last message had arrived only 15 minutes earlier. You can run farther than most. I'm impressed. The next message. But you're still terrible at hiding. Another. Nice hospital. Another. Tell Alpha Warren I'm looking forward to meeting him. My hands went numb. The final message contained only a photograph. Taken that very evening. The hospital entrance. From outside the perimeter fence. Someone had been watching. At the bottom of the image was a single sentence. Come home before your new pack dies because of you. I stared at the screen until the words blurred. Simon had found me. Not eventually. Now. A knock sounded on the door. Before I could hide the phone, Warren stepped inside on crutches, ignoring every medical order I'd given him. One look at my face was enough. What happened? I didn't answer. Instead, I handed him the phone. He read each message in silence. By the time he reached the photograph, every trace of warmth had vanished from his expression. When he looked up, the alpha who had joked with nurses and argued with doctors was gone. In his place stood the commander his warriors followed into battle. He pressed a button on the wall. An alarm echoed through the hospital. Within seconds, warriors flooded the corridor. Helena arrived first. What is it? Warren held up the phone. We have a security breach. She read the messages once. Her face darkened. Who is Simon? I closed my eyes. The man who has been hunting me for 3 years. And Warren said quietly, the man who just threatened my pack. He handed the phone back to me. You should have told me. I was trying to keep you out of it. You did. His gaze met mine. He followed you anyway. He turned to Helena. Lock down every entrance. Double the border patrols. And send scouts. Helena nodded. For whom? Warren's answer came without hesitation. For Simon. The room fell silent. Find him. And this time. His emerald eyes were as cold as winter. He's the one walking into my territory. The pack moved with frightening efficiency. Sirens never sounded again. They didn't need to. Within 5 minutes, every hospital entrance had 2 warriors posted. By 10, every patrol route had doubled. By 15, scouts were already disappearing into the forest. This wasn't panic. It was preparation. I hated how familiar it looked. You're shaking. I looked down. It was. From memory. Warren dismissed everyone except Helena. The office door clicked shut. He leaned against the desk instead of sitting. His leg clearly protested the decision, but he ignored it. Tell me about Simon. No. Helena frowned. No, the less you know about me, the safer your pack is. Warren's expression didn't change. That's your answer as a lone wolf? Yes. My answer as alpha is different. I folded my arms. I noticed. Silence stretched between us. Finally, he spoke again. Did he hurt you? No. It was the truth. Not physically. He hurt other people to control me. That was somehow worse. He never needed to touch me. The words came slowly. If I disobeyed. I stared at the floor. Someone else paid. The old baker who let me hide in her shop. My literature tutor. A patrol wolf who once walked me home after dark. They all had accidents. Helena's jaw tightened. Proof. Never. That's how Simon works. He smiles. He apologizes. He attends the funeral. And everyone thanks him for his kindness. Neither of them interrupted. He makes people disappear without leaving fingerprints. Warren looked toward the rain-soaked window. And his father? I finally smiled. A sad one. Alpha Solomon saved my life. Helena blinked. What? He figured out Simon planned to force the mate bond. He couldn't expose his own son without breaking the pack apart. So, he forged my university acceptance papers. Transferred money anonymously. Put me in a truck before sunrise. He told me. My throat tightened. Live long enough to become someone Simon can't own. The room became very quiet. So you never ran from your alpha? Warren said it almost to himself. You ran because your alpha helped you. Yes. A knock interrupted us. Enter. A scout hurried inside, soaked from the rain. Alpha. We found tracks. Everyone straightened. 3 intruders. Only 3? Yes. That's the strange part. Helena frowned. Scouts? No. They wanted us to find them. He laid several photographs across the desk. Broken branches. Boot prints. Deliberately obvious trail markers. They're leading us east. Warren studied the images. A distraction. I think so. My stomach dropped. No. They looked at me. They aren't leading you east. They're pulling you east. So, what's west? Helena answered immediately. The nursery. My blood ran cold. And? The elders' housing. The recovery lodge. The families of most of our warriors. Exactly. Simon didn't attack soldiers first. He attacked what soldiers loved. Warren was already reaching for his radio. Recall every eastern patrol. Helena was doing the same. Move defensive units to the western villages. The scout hesitated. Alpha, if we're wrong. If she's right. Warren interrupted. We save hundreds. The radio crackled less than 4 minutes later. Static. Heavy breathing. Then shouting. West perimeter. They're here. Multiple hostiles. Protect the nursery. An explosion echoed faintly through the open window. Helena didn't wait for orders. She was already running. Warriors flooded the corridors. The hospital transformed into a fortress. Patients who could stand picked up weapons. Nurses began evacuating children into reinforced shelters beneath the building. No one screamed. They had practiced this too many times. Warren reached for the sword hanging on the wall. I stepped in front of him. No. His eyebrow lifted. No. You had major reconstructive surgery 8 hours ago. My pack is under attack. And you'll tear every stitch I put in. He looked genuinely conflicted. I can't stay here. You also can't fight if your leg snaps in half. He opened his mouth. I cut him off. You trusted me in surgery. Trust me now. For a long moment neither of us moved. Then, slowly, he let go of the sword. Instead, he picked up the radio. All units. His voice carried through every speaker in the hospital. This is Alpha Warren. I will coordinate from command. Protect our civilians. Protect each other. And remember. His gaze found mine. No one fights alone tonight. Outside, another explosion shook the windows. Far beyond the hospital, hidden among the burning trees, a man with an easy smile watched the defenders abandon the eastern border exactly as he had planned. Simon lowered the binoculars. So, he murmured. You've become clever. His smile widened. Good. It would be disappointing if catching you were easy. He turned to the silent wolves behind him. Phase 2. One of them hesitated. The Alpha stayed at the hospital. Simon chuckled. I know. He finally met his mate. His eyes gleamed with cold amusement. Which means he'll make the same mistake every Alpha does. He'll protect her. Before he protects himself. The first casualty reached the hospital 12 minutes later. Then another. And another. The emergency ward exploded into motion. Chest wound. Pressure's dropping. I need blood. Where's Dr. Stevens? I've got him. I shouted. The fear that had threatened to paralyze me vanished the moment I saw blood. Medicine had rules. People didn't. That was why I trusted medicine. Dr. Stevens met me halfway down the corridor. You're with me. No one questioned it. Not anymore. A young warrior had taken a crossbow bolt through the shoulder. Another had deep claw marks across his ribs. A third was unconscious from head trauma. Treat the shoulder first, I said. Stevens looked up. The unconscious one can wait 60 seconds. If we don't stop his bleeding, this one dies before we even examine the other. Stevens nodded immediately. Clamp. Hours blurred together. Stitches. Bandages. Blood. Orders. Someone shoved coffee into my hand. I forgot to drink it. Someone else draped a blanket over my shoulders. I didn't notice until it slid to the floor. Outside, fighting continued. Inside, we fought a different battle. Just after midnight, Helena stormed into the emergency ward. Her clothes were torn. Blood covered one sleeve. Most of it wasn't hers. The western villages are secure. Relief swept through the room. But she looked directly at Warren. We counted 14 attackers. Only 14? That didn't make sense. Simon never risked an operation for so few wolves. Unless. Where's the rest? Helena's expression darkened. We don't know. Anika growled so loudly inside me that I nearly dropped the forceps. Wrong. I looked around the hospital. Too many patients. Too many strangers. Too many people coming and going. A supply cart rolled past. An orderly I'd never seen before pushed it toward the surgical wing. He wore hospital scrubs. His badge hung backward. His scent didn't belong. Unknown wolf. My pulse spiked. Helena. She followed my gaze. The orderly never looked up. Too calm. Too deliberate. He disappeared around the corner leading toward the intensive care rooms. Toward Warren's recovery suite. Stop him. Helena was already moving. So are you. I took off after her. The orderly heard us. He abandoned the cart instantly. Medical supplies crashed across the floor. He ran. Not toward an exit. Toward Warren. Exactly where he'd intended to go all along. The chase tore through the hospital. Nurses threw themselves out of the way. Patients ducked into rooms. The wolf was fast. Professional. He rounded one corner. and slammed straight into Warren. My heart stopped. The assassin smiled. Perfect. He'd wanted this. A blade flashed from beneath his sleeve. Silver. Coated in black poison. He drove it toward Warren's chest. Warren twisted. Too slow. His injured leg buckled beneath him. The knife changed direction. Straight toward his throat. No, I didn't think. I moved. The blade never reached Warren. Instead, it buried itself in my side. Everything went silent. The assassin blinked, as if he hadn't expected me to be fast enough. Neither had I. Pain bloomed hot beneath my ribs. The poison burned immediately. The assassin ripped the knife free. Before he could strike again, a deafening roar shook the hallway. Not from Warren. From every wolf in the corridor. Their alpha's mate had just been stabbed. Something primal snapped through the bond of the pack. Helena hit the assassin first. She tackled him into the wall hard enough to crack concrete. Warren's fist followed, an instant later. The assassin's jaw shattered. He still laughed, even while spitting blood. Two. He coughed. Late. Then he bit down. A hidden poison capsule. Foam filled his mouth. Within seconds, he was dead. I swayed. The poison spread through my body like liquid fire. Strong hands caught me before I hit the floor. Warren. His face had gone utterly white. Stay with me. I tried to smile. Fine. You are an awful liar. His voice broke on the last word. Dr. Stevens skidded into the hallway with a crash cart. What happened? Poison blade. He looked at the wound. Then at the blood. Then at my eyes. His expression changed. Oh no. What? Stevens didn't answer immediately. Instead, he sniffed the blood on the knife lying nearby. His face drained of color. Wolfsbane, he whispered, mixed with moonshade. The hallway fell deathly quiet. Every wolf present knew what that combination meant. It wasn't meant to kill an ordinary wolf. It was engineered for one purpose. To kill the mate of an alpha. Warren looked from the knife to me. And for the first time since I'd met him, fear completely overtook the alpha of the pack. The poison should have killed me. It didn't. For 3 days, I hovered between life and death. The pack's healers tried everything. Dr. Stevens exhausted every antidote he knew. Nothing worked. My heartbeat slowed. My wolf stopped responding. Anika had curled into herself, silent. Until the 4th night. Warren ignored every order to rest. His reconstructed leg split open twice because he refused to leave my bedside. Helena finally snapped. If you collapse too, this pack loses both of you. He didn't even look at her. Then don't let me collapse. He took my hand. You told me once to trust my doctor. His voice was barely above a whisper. I'm trying. On the morning of the 5th day, I opened my eyes. Dr. Stevens nearly dropped his clipboard. Alpha. Warren was awake before the word finished leaving Stevens' mouth. Our eyes met. Neither of us spoke. We didn't need to. The bond settled quietly between us. Not overwhelming. Not magical. Just present. 2 weeks later, I was walking again. Slowly. Carefully. Anika was awake. Weak but alive. Dr. Stevens stared at my newest blood tests. This is impossible. I looked over his shoulder. What? The poison. It should still be in your system. It isn't. Your blood. He blinked. Destroyed it. Warren smiled. My mate heals. Stevens shook his head. No. She adapted. He looked at me with new fascination. I've never seen a wolf's immune system learn that quickly. A month later, Warren's leg had healed. Not perfectly. He would always have a slight limp in cold weather. He called it his reminder to avoid bear traps. I called it proof he was terrible at following medical advice. Life finally became quiet. Almost. Until one afternoon, a scout burst into the council chamber. Alpha. Warren looked up. What is it? We found Alpha Solomon. Every muscle in my body froze. Alive. My chair scraped backward. What? He crossed the border this morning. He requested safe passage. An hour later, the old Alpha walked into the pack house. He looked 10 years older than I remembered. His shoulders were still broad. His eyes were still kind. But grief had carved lines into his face. When he saw me, he smiled. You lived. I crossed the room before I realized I was moving. He hugged me tightly. I was afraid. His voice cracked. That I sent you away only to lose you anyway. I buried my face against his shoulder. You saved me. No. He stepped back. I only bought you time. Warren offered him a seat. I assume this isn't a social visit. Solomon laughed once. No. His smile disappeared. I've stepped down. Silence. Helena frowned. Voluntarily. I had no choice. Simon challenged me. My blood ran cold. And? I refused to kill my own son. So, I forfeited the Alpha title. The room fell silent. Simon is Alpha now. Solomon unfolded a map. He placed it on the table. Red circles covered half the territory. These packs have already fallen. Another circle. And these have sworn loyalty. Helena counted them. 9. Solomon nodded. He isn't trying to rule one pack anymore. He wants them all. He looked directly at Warren. And you're next. 6 months later. The war ended. Not with one battle. With dozens. Simon proved every bit as dangerous as everyone feared. Manipulation. Ambushes. Assassinations. He almost killed Warren twice. He nearly captured me once. But every plan failed. Not because Simon became careless. Because he never understood one thing. Packs built on fear break. Packs built on loyalty don't. His own betas began abandoning him. Then his warriors. Then entire families. When the final battle came, Simon stood nearly alone. He laughed as Warren disarmed him. You think you've won? I know we have. Simon looked at me. You were supposed to belong to me. I met his eyes without flinching. I never belonged to anyone. For the first time. His smile disappeared. Warren struck him once. Hard enough to end the fight. Simon was imprisoned for the murders, kidnappings, and attacks he had ordered. With his crimes exposed and witnesses from multiple packs coming forward, no Alpha answered his calls anymore. 1 year later, I graduated at the top of my class. Not just from human medicine, but veterinary medicine as well. Dr. Stevens handed me a new white coat. Across the back, embroidered in silver thread, were 4 words. Chief Surgical Consultant. I laughed. I'm 24. So, I just finished university. So, I've never even applied for this job. Warren walked in carrying flowers. You don't have to. I looked between him and Stevens. You planned this. Helena appeared in the doorway. For months. I groaned. I live with conspirators. The best kind, Helena replied. 5 years later. The pack. Hospital had become the largest wolf medical center in the region. Students came from every territory to learn there. Human surgeons quietly exchanged research with wolf healers through anonymous journals. No one knew who started the collaboration. Only a handful knew the truth. Sometimes, on quiet evenings, I would walk through the rehabilitation garden and see Warren jogging with only the faintest hint of a limp. He always claimed he didn't need checkups. I always reminded him that I was the doctor. He always lost that argument. Every single time. And for the first time since leaving my old pack, when the wind shifted through the trees, I no longer checked whether someone was hunting me. I simply breathed it in. Because I wasn't a lone wolf anymore. I was finally home. The first snowfall came 5 years after the war. It covered the rebuilt borders, the memorial stones, and the old scars the earth had never completely hidden. The entire pack gathered in the central square. Not for a funeral. For a celebration. Dr. Stevens stood at the front, looking older and far less grumpy than when I'd first met him. I hereby resign. Gasps rippled through the crowd. He pointed at me. It's about time. The nurses laughed. The warriors cheered. Helena actually smiled. Dr. Stevens walked over and placed the hospital's silver director's badge into my hand. I've taught you everything I know. He leaned closer. You've taught me a few things too. Take care of them. I will. That evening, Warren found me standing beneath the oak tree overlooking the valley. The first tree I showed you, he said. The one where you insisted your leg would heal whether you listened to me or not. I was optimistic. You were stubborn. I still am. I laughed. So am I. He reached into his coat pocket. Not for a ring. For something much older. The rusted bear trap. Cleaned. Its teeth had been welded permanently open. I kept it. I noticed. I hated it. He turned it over in his hands. Then I realized something. If this trap had never been here, I never would have met the woman who saved my life. He set it gently at the base of the oak. Some things deserve to stay buried. Together, we covered it with earth. Not as a monument to pain, but as proof that pain didn't get the last word. Another 5 years passed. The hospital doubled in size. Young wolves from every territory trained there. Some specialized in surgery, others in rehabilitation. A few even attended the nearby human university, just as I once had. They no longer had to hide why. The alliance between wolves and trusted human doctors had changed everything. Dr. Stevens eventually retired to a small cottage beside the river. He still visited every Tuesday. He still corrected everyone's posture in the operating room. He still claimed modern students held scalpels incorrectly. No one had the heart to argue. Helena became the most respected beta in the region. She never married. When anyone asked why, she answered the same way every time. I already have 2 impossible people to supervise. She was looking directly at Warren and me whenever she said it. Alpha Solomon spent the rest of his life helping young alphas avoid repeating the mistakes he had made. When he passed away peacefully in his sleep at an old age, representatives from 12 packs attended his funeral. On his memorial stone were the words, "He chose compassion when power was easier." I cried harder than I had expected. He had been the first person to believe I deserved a future. Simon never escaped. Years in prison did what no battle could. He became forgotten. The wolves he had terrorized rebuilt their lives. The children who had once feared his name grew up never needing to. That was the greatest punishment of all. 20 years after I first walked into Warren's hospital covered in mud and carrying nothing but a backpack and too many secrets. A little girl with reddish-brown hair tugged on my lab coat. "Mom?" "Yes." "Is it true you met Dad because he got stuck in a bear trap?" I looked across the garden. Warren was pretending not to listen. Our 3 children were chasing him while our grandchildren chased them. He was losing on purpose. I did. The little girl giggled. "That's a silly way to meet your mate." It really was. She thought for a moment. "Did you fall in love right away?" I smiled. "No. I chose him. And every day after that, I chose him again." Across the lawn, Warren looked up and smiled at me. Even after all those years, the mate bond still warmed quietly between us, not because fate demanded it, but because we had built a life worth sharing. I walked over and slipped my hand into his. "Your leg hurting?" "A little." "Told you the cold would do that." "I know. Have you been doing the stretches I prescribed?" He looked away innocently. "Maybe." "Warren." "Not recently." Our children burst into laughter. "Grandpa's in trouble again." "I always am," he admitted. "But I've got the best doctor in the world." I rolled my eyes and kissed his cheek. Flattery doesn't get you out of physical therapy. It was worth a try. The sun dipped below the mountains as our family laughed around us. Once I had believed surviving was enough. Then I believed healing others would be enough. I was wrong. Home was never a place. It was the people who stood beside you when you were frightened, challenged you when you were stubborn, forgave you when you failed, and loved you enough to let you become yourself. I had arrived at Warren's territory as a lone wolf running from her past. I left my footprints across it as a doctor, a mate, a mother, a teacher, and a leader. And when the evening breeze swept through the trees, carrying the scents of pine, rain, and the laughter of generations yet to come, Anika lifted her head inside me, not in loneliness, but in quiet contentment. We had finally found the one thing we had searched for all our lives. We were home.